What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the latest edition of Player Profiler today, broadcasting on this fine Wednesday, July the 21st. I'm your host, Grindberg, Mike Limberg, senior analyst at the Player Profiler news desk. It's a pleasure to be with you here every Wednesday to navigate you through today's top stories and insights. Today, we will dive into the Rashee Rice situation. The Dallas Cowboys prepare to kick off training camp without star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. Kadarius Toney shifts gears to running back potentially for 2024. And Jayden Reed begins camp on the NFI list. Stay tuned as we unpack this and so much more on Player Profiler today. In the ever-evolving landscape of fantasy football, Rashee Rice's journey embodies both promise and uncertainty as we approach the 2024 season, despite facing legal challenges that could impact his availability. There are several optimistic scenarios that managers should consider. Rashee's incident in Kansas City Chiefs offense begin to gain traction in 2023, demonstrating his potential as a dynamic wide receiver. Even with initial limitations, he managed an impressive 102 targets, showcasing his growing role in the passing game. His performance trajectory hinted at a breakout year ahead, particularly with the arrival of Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy to bolster the receiving core under the strategic guidance of head coach Andy Reid. As we delve deep into the preseason buzz, optimism persists despite a looming legal cloud. Recent reports from insider sources suggest a possibility that Rice could avoid suspension for the 2024 season due to timing considerations with legal proceedings. This potential outcome offers a ray of hope for fantasy gamers eyeing Rice's talent and explosive potential in the Chiefs offense. Clark Hunt, the owner of the Chiefs, has indicated that there have not been any concrete decisions regarding Rice and the suspension with the NFL. The lack of immediate action implies a scenario where Rice could remain eligible for a substantial part of the season, if not the whole season. As the developments of this legal case, continue to evolve, fantasy gamers strategizing their draft picks, this uncertainty translates into a potential value opportunity if Rice's ADP remains discounted. Reflecting on his rookie season, stats provide further encouragement. We're talking about a guy who had 105 receptions and 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns in 20 games, including playoffs. His knack for yards after the catch and proficiency in route running positions him favorably in an Andy Reid offense, despite competitive landscapes like the newcomers, Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy. They're vying for targets. Rice has established himself a role and chemistry with Patrick Mahomes that cannot be overlooked. Should he evade suspension or face a manageable penalty, Rice stands poised to contribute significantly to fantasy rosters, particularly in critical playoff stretches. In fantasy drafts, Rice's ADP as wide receiver 36 in the mid to late rounds presents a calculated risk worth considering. His potential upside as the primary target behind Travis Kelce in one of the league's most dynamic offenses makes him a tantalizing option for managers and gamers willing to navigate the uncertainty around this legal situation. With a blend of talent and opportunity and strategic plan, Rice embodies the type of high reward player that can elevate fantasy teams to championship contention. As the season unfolds, fantasy gamers should monitor Rice's legal proceedings closely. Optimism persists that favorable outcome could see Rice on the field early and often, rewarding those who bet on his talent and resilience. In the realm of fantasy football, where every draft pick counts, Rice remains a compelling narrative and potential amidst adversity, offering a hope for a standout season despite the challenges he faces off the field. Fantasy gamers should capitalize on Rice's ADP discount, and you know his rise will significantly happen if word comes out even more that he's going to evade this suspension. So I'm all in on Rashee Rice this year. I love his price point, and you should be too, folks. Here. So now let's get into a message from the Podfather. And if you're looking to find an injury or get a leg up on the groups, let's talk to the Podfather about what the injury finder is all about.
Hey, you're in your fantasy draft and someone says, hey, that guy's injury prone. I don't want him. And you're like, I don't know. I don't think you can predict injuries. Well, guess what? Now you can. Injury proneness is real. At Player Profiler, we have the data on these players, and it's all in the Injury Finder app. Their injury track record back through time, exactly where they were injured, how severe it is. We look at the BMI data, and we crunch it all together, and we give you probabilities that a player will miss multiple games this NFL season, as well as the complete database of NFL injuries and the ability to compare two players and look at their injury track record. The Injury Finder is powerful, and it's only $5. If it's worth it to have that peace of mind when you're drafting, go get it.
As the Dallas Cowboys prepare to kick off their 2024 training camp, star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb's absence looms large, reflecting ongoing contract disputes that have yet to be resolved. Sources confirmed to ESPN's Adam Schefter on Tuesday night, Lamb, entering his final year of his current deal worth $17.99 million, is not expected to join his teammates when camp officially opens on Wednesday. The Cowboys, anticipating this scenario, have been bracing for Lamb's holdout, underscoring the uncertainty around his future with the team. Lamb's decision to skip June's mandatory minicamp resulted in fines totaling approximately $100,000, a clear indication of his stance in seeking more lucrative contract extension. Despite ongoing discussions between Lamb's representatives and the Cowboys management throughout the offseason, no agreement has been reached that would elevate Lamb to the top echelon of the wide receiver salaries, following the footsteps of Justin Jefferson's $140 million deal with the Vikings. In 2023, Lamb standout season saw him set a franchise record with 135 receptions, 1,745 yards, 14 touchdowns, earning him first team All-Pro with 335 fantasy points in half PPR formats. Lamb's ability to consistently find the end zone through potentially impacted Dallas red zone challenges reinforces his status as a premier fantasy asset. With Lamb's future uncertain and training camp commences, the spotlight remains to be fixed on whether a deal can be brokered before the season opens, or if negotiations will linger, potentially affecting the Cowboys' offensive rhythm and Lamb's fantasy football outlook. His absence underscores his resolve to secure a contract that reflects his contributions, setting the stage for a pivotal season ahead where both his on-field performance and contract negotiations will be closely scrutinized. Now, this is a turn I was not expecting. I thought that the Cowboys would try and make a deal with CeeDee Lamb by this point already, but that has not been the case. This is heating up. We've seen this happen already, where we've got another potential situation brewing with these wide receivers. Brandon Ayuk is another guy that has asked for a trade now. That could be another step in the future for CeeDee Lamb if this doesn't get resolved soon. But I'm assuming that the Dallas Cowboys are going to, get their wits about them and figure out a deal to get CeeDee Lamb the money he deserves, as being the wide receiver one in fantasy football last year and the top wide receiver in the league in the NFL. Now transitioning to another wide receiver, or is he a wide receiver? That is yet to be known at this stage of the preseason. When we're talking about Kadarius Toney going to the running back position, I'm not sure. Kadarius Toney is shaking things up in fantasy football, as it looks like in 2024. by potentially transitioning to running back in the early Chiefs training camp after a tough 2023 where he struggled to find his groove. Toney's new role, mixing wide receiver skills with running back duties, shows the Chiefs are keen to use his speed and his agility to their advantage. Coach Andy Reid is upbeat about Toney's performance, highlighting how he could make a big impact if he keeps impressing in his dual role. While Isaiah Pacheco holds the top spot at running back, Toney's versatility makes him an intriguing option, especially in PPR leagues where his ability to dodge tackles and catch passes could pay off. Fantasy gamers should closely monitor Toney's progress as draft day approaches. If he stays healthy and thrives in his expanded role, he could become a sleeper pick with lots of potential in this Chiefs high energy offense. To keep tabs on Kadarius Toney as he adjusts to his new position, and watch for more updates on his fantasy prospects as the 2024 season kicks off. As a Chiefs fan, a diehard Chiefs fan, this came into a surprise to even myself. Seeing him back there in the backfield. I was really surprised when I wrote up the article yesterday for Player Profiler, updating his status. And yeah, it should be an interesting situation headed into 2024. We know that Kadarius Toney isn't very sure-handed, but if he's catching, hitch passes out of the backfield, that speed and his elusiveness could be exactly what the doctor ordered for Kadarius Toney to resurge his career in the NFL. But that is hearsay because he still has to prove that he can be a reliable target. And I think he's going to continue being just that gadget player with, maybe some best ball upside if he can catch a couple decent games. And you never know down the stretch how the Chiefs ended up using Jerick McKinnon in their 2022 Super Bowl run, and how much of a league winner he was for fantasy gamers during that season. So look out for Kadarius Toney if he can, come into a similar role with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Jayden Reed is starting the Green Bay Packers training camp on the NFI list, alongside two other players that they prepare for the upcoming season. While Reed can be activated at any time pending the disclosure of his injury, his outlook for the 2024 season remains hopeful in what's expected to be a potent Green Bay Packers offense. However, fantasy gamers should keep an eye out for updates during preseason, as uncertainties about his health could affect draft strategies. Looking back at 2023, Reed showed promise with his incredible 10 touchdowns as a rookie. That ranked him 5th overall, and averaging as the wide receiver 26 in fantasy points per game. To match this and to surpass these numbers in 2024, he'll likely need to be playing more time and be used more strategically. Last season, Reed's target share was a modest 17.6%, and he's anticipated in routes on just 69% of snaps, ranking 78th among wide receivers. The uncertainty surrounding the Packers' primary wide receiver role further complicates Reed's fantasy outlook in 2024. With his slot position, it offers stability. His target share fluctuates, notably depending on the health of the lineup and the configurations and, what's going on with other key wide receivers like Christian Watson. Reed's productivity was significantly higher when operating without Watson, highlighting the potential impact of competition within that wide receiver core. The Packers' addition of running back Josh Jacobs in the offseason suggests a more balanced offensive approach could further dilute target opportunities among their skill positions. Fantasy gamers considering Reed in 2024 drafts, his ADP of 76 places him at the highest cost Packers pass catcher. This price reflects expectations of expanded involvement like a star like Deebo Samuel, despite Reed's similar stature. Yet the reality may entail a more diversified offensive strategy that limits Reed's fantasy ceiling. While he remains a talented player and potential to deliver, particularly in best ball formats where his big playability could shine through, cautious considerations of his draft costs relative to other Packers receivers like Wicks and Dobbs, who are drafted much later, is advised. So a lot of uncertainty, a lot of situations evolving with that Packers offense. I love that Packers offense last year. I'm high on them this year. They've got a lot of weapons revolving around them, and I'm liking what I'm seeing there. And if you're liking what you're seeing here and enjoying the show, don't miss out on more exclusive content. Subscribe to the Player Profiler YouTube channel at Player Profiler News. Follow us on Twitter at Profiler_NFL and visit our website at https:/www.playerprofiler.com/news for all the latest breaking news and its impact on fantasy football. Stay ahead of the game with Player Profiler. Now, Cam Akers signing with the Houston Texans marks a significant chapter in his NFL journey following a challenging stretch marred by injury. The former Rams and Vikings running back joins the Texans after an impressive workout with the team, despite recovering from his second torn Achilles tendon in 3 years. The latest setback has understandably tempered expectations, with Akers likely competing for a roster spot rather than immediate fantasy prominence. Akers' resilience is commendable, having previously returned from a torn Achilles suffered in 2021 to contribute to the Rams' playoff run. However, the severity of these injuries cast a shadow over his fantasy outlook for 2024 as he adjusts to a new team and battles for playing time behind established backs like Joe Mixon, Dameon Pierce. Akers faces an uphill climb for fantasy relevance. His role in Houston's backfield hierarchy, likely competing with Jawar Jordan for the RB3 position, diminishes his impact and fantasy appeal. Fantasy gamers, Akers signing with the Texans prompts cautious optimism tempered by his injury history, while potential to contribute remains, particularly in a depth role or as a spot starter. Expectations should be managed given the nature of his recovery and competition within the Texans roster. Monitoring his progress through training camp will be crucial to gauge his readiness and impact during the upcoming season. The Saints also secure somebody here, and that is a steal with Rashid Shaheed, a dual threat as a both returner and receiver. According to Schefter, the Saints inked him to a $5.21 million extension with Shaheed, the dynamic wide receiver, all-pro return specialist. This deal is a significant coup for the New Orleans Saints, given Shaheed's versatility in the return game and his emergence as a promising wideout. With Clint Kubiak taking over as the offensive coordinator, Shaheed is expected to be more involved across the board. He'll likely get more chances beyond just deep routes, which could lead to more yards after the catch. In the previous season, he had a 13.6 target share and a 23.5 share of air yards, and his efficiency metrics placed him solidly in the middle of qualifying wide receivers in terms of yards per route run and yards per game. Coming off a sophomore year, he set personal bests in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Drafters can confidently expect Rashee Shaheed to outperform his current ADP, particularly when paired with Derek Carr or utilized strategically in best ball formats. Whether stacked with Carr for a potent Week 17 matchup against the Raiders or chosen in a standalone pick, Shaheed promised to deliver value. World famous Draft Kit has been transformed fantasy football draft prep by blending the ease of a magazine with the technical know-how of Player Profiler. It stands out with a deep focus on team insights, player analysis, and cheat sheets, empowering fantasy gamers to make smart draft decisions and dominate their leagues. Go out and get our world famous Draft Kit now. Now, Quentin Johnson, the former 21st overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, faces a pivotal sophomore season after challenging rookie year marked by modest production and limited opportunities in the Chargers offense. despite stepping into a significant role due to injuries, including Mike Williams' season-ending ACL tear, including 10 starts. His underwhelming performance, targeted out by a mere 13.3% of his routes run, underscores his struggles to carve out a niche in the Chargers passing game. While it's premature to label him a bust after just one season, Johnson's lack of impact and competitive landscape in the Chargers receiving corps suggests he may struggle to deliver fantasy relevance still in 2024 under Harbaugh, who emphasizes a balance and efficient over aerial fireworks. Johnston might only merit considerations as a late round flyer in best ball formats or a waiver wire pickup in deeper leagues if injuries thin out the receiving core during the season. Fantasy gamers eyeing Quentin Johnston should temper expectations, considering both his development trajectory and the Chargers' offensive philosophy under their new coaching regime. Unless significant changes occur in his usage or performance, Johnson remains a speculative fantasy asset with limited upside headed into this season. And that's a tough one for people that drafted him last year, especially in dynasty leagues, looking for him to pay off. Clearly hasn't yet, and we'll see what happens in 2024. It has been a pleasure navigating you through today's top stories and insights with you right here every Wednesday. We've explored Rashee Rice's potential suspension, Kadarius Toney's transition to running back, CeeDee Lamb's holdout, Jayden Reed's uncertain start in the Packers training camp. And with that, we've come to an end of another great episode of Player Profiler today. I'm your host, Grindberg, bringing you the freshest updates every Wednesday. Stay tuned as we continue to delve deep into the world of Player Profiler. For exclusive content and more updates, be sure to follow us on Twitter and YouTube, and follow me on X at FFCanuck99. Thanks for joining us today, and remember to mark your calendars. Bradley Starler returns tomorrow in Thursday night slot, so mark your calendars. And for the entire team at Player Profiler, we hope you have a great night, and cheers to winning.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.